Chapter 3 Troubled Waters and Oil. No catastrophe ever befell any of us, but that Tom, some time in the distant past, had experienced the same trouble, only more so. If one of our boys stepped on a nail, Tom would allay fears of lockjaw by describing how he once had stepped on a spike that went all the way through his foot and into his ankle. Not only that, but he'd take off his shoe and show you the scar. When Bill broke out with spots, Tom was the first to discover them and hurriedly order Bill to bed. "But I don't feel sick," Bill protested. "Just scratchy. Don't tell me nothing," Tom commanded. "You're sick as a dog." "Just scratchy," Bill repeated, scratching himself. "I told you once, I ain't going to tell you again," Tom said. "Get to bed, now, and if you don't stop scratching yourself, you'll be out of the club for 100 years. Only members of Tom's club were admitted to the kitchen after supper. This was true even before he became a cook, because Tom had always presided over the kitchen once the day's duties were done. For club members who were in good standing, Tom sometimes would play the harmonica, pop corn, distribute candy, and perform card tricks. Those who were out of the club could come no closer to the activities than the back hall. The door was left open and they were allowed to watch, but not allowed to eat or otherwise participate. The older children, while professing scorn for Tom's club, frequently were found in the kitchen after supper, if they were fortunate enough to be in his good graces. To the younger ones, banishment from the club was Siberia's steppes. Tom's minimum excommunication, when meting out expulsion, was for 100 years. Actually, this meant only about 15 minutes, because Tom's heart was soft. The maximum anathema was for 1,000 years and 4 days. This might mean an entire evening, although the sentence was often mitigated if one could manage to look repentant enough. After Bill had climbed into his pajamas, Tom called Annie to break the news. "Oh, Lord," Annie groaned. "That's the last straw. Just when I was beginning to think things might go smoothly." "It's all right, Annie," Bill assured her. "I don't feel sick." "I hear you scratching under them covers," Tom warned him. "I ain't deaf, you know. I ain't blind. I told you twice, and I ain't going to tell you again. Mind now." "I better call the doctor," Annie sighed. "I could tell you how to dose him," Tom said, "but—" "Oh, no, you don't. I know your doses," Bill shouted. "Remember what Dad told you about dosing them?" Anne said. "I remember." Tom's tone was injured. "I could cure Bill, but I got my orders. I can take a hint." Anne leaned over and studied Bill's spots. "It looks like hives or a rash to me," she said. "Hives," Tom grunted. "He's sick as a dog, I tell you. Of course he ain't sick as I was once when—" "He ate some of that burned ragoon." Anne stopped quickly. "Maybe he ate something that didn't agree with him." "Didn't agree with him?" Tom asked, and then accusingly said to Bill, "Have you been sneaking out and eating down street again? You don't know what goes into the food they give you at them drugstores." Bill shook his head. "Anyway, it ain't his stomach," said Tom. "I know what it is, all right, but your father gave me orders, so I dasn't tell you." "He gave them to you the time we had measles, and you said it was scarlet fever, didn't he, Tom?" Bill said. "That was the time," Tom conceded. "Heck, anyone can make a mistake like that, huh, Tom?" Bill asked. Bill was one of Tom's defenders, and usually in the club. "You scared Mother half to death," Anne said accusingly. "I still ain't sure it wasn't that either," Tom said. Anne went to telephone Dr. Burton, and Tom paced the floor of the room shared by Frank and Bill. "Of course," he muttered for the benefit of those who had assembled to see Bill's spots. "I don't know nothing about it. I'm stupid, I am. I'm stupid that I even seen 100 cases just like it in the war. I don't know what it is. I seen them dying like flies from it." "Is it really bad?" Bill asked. "Will everybody catch it?" "You'll catch it, you bold thing, you, if you don't stop scratching. You'll be out of the club for 100 years. "Not that," Ernestine protested in mock terror. "Anything but that." Tom pretended not to hear, but there was no doubt that Ernestine, or the princess, as Tom sometimes called her with an aggravated curtsy, was out of the club for 1,000 years and 4 days. Tom resumed his pacing and mumbling. I was an orderly in a hospital for 10 months during the war for nothing. Had my eyes closed the whole time, sure I did. The war to which Tom alluded was the Spanish-American. If, as Tom frequently alleged, he had actually served as a hospital orderly, medicine had progressed considerably since those days, for Tom placed all his reliance on quinine and castor oil, and we were not completely sure he knew what the practice of bleeding the patient had been pretty generally discontinued. What was good medicine for humans, he believed, was equally beneficial for animals. Tom was a collector of pets, both wild and domesticated, much to the disgust of Dad. Dad used to complain that feeding almost a score of human mouths was more than any white man's burden, and that it was an outrage to be required to give substance to the fauna which followed Tom home, or begged handouts on the kitchen windowsill. Let one of Tom's pets show up with a warm nose, sagging beak, coated tongue, fetid breath, or bloodshot eye, and Tom would swiftly mix a dose of castor oil and quinine remedy, add a bit of sugar to make the dose more palatable, and force the solution through the mouth or down the bill of the dilapidated creature. None of them had ever died, or seemed to hold a lasting grudge. But Tom's cat, 14, Tom numbered his cat progressively, would get down on her belly and start sneaking toward the back door every time she saw him reach up to the kitchen sink where he kept the quinine remedy. Tom's diagnoses for persons other than himself were varied, uninhabited, and sometimes exotic. But when he was sick himself, he always diagnosed the ailment as pleurisy, regardless of whether the symptoms were a bleeding nose or a swollen foot. On these occasions, he would send out for the quinine remedies, large economy flagon, and it never failed him. Ernestine and Martha were in bed too by the time Dr. Burton arrived. Whenever the doctor came to our house, Tom was the medical orderly again. He said yes, sir, and no, sir, and he sucked in his stomach. Dr. Burton knew of Tom's claims of medical experience, and he assured himself of Tom's cooperation by treating him as a learned colleague in the profession. "What is it?" Anne asked anxiously as Dr. Burton leaned over Bill's bed. "Tom keeps hinting at something serious." "He says he's seen them die like flies from it," Bill said, "but all it does is itch." "It's obvious, Tom?" said the physician. "Yes, sir, only I won't tell them nothing, 'cause Mr. Gilbert made me promise." "Anyone can see it's chicken pox. No need to make an examination. Would you say so, Tom?" "Is that all?" Anne sighed. "That's what I thought, sir," said Tom. "Either that or smallpox. I wasn't sure which." "It's nothing to worry about," Dr. Burton told Annie. "I'm not worried," Anne said, glaring at Tom, "now that I know it's not leprosy or chloria." "You'll be all up and around in a few days," Dr. Burton assured her. "What do you mean, all?" Anne said. "Chicken pox is the children's disease, isn't it?" Have any of you had chicken pox?" "I guess not," Anne admitted. "Well, then you'll all get it. But Tom will take good care of you." "Yes, sir," Tom beamed. "I'll have some medicine sent around," the doctor continued. "And Tom, I'll count on you to see they keep regular." "I've got just the thing," said Tom. And it was obvious that Dr. Burton's medical standing had skyrocketed in his estimation. "Castor oil," moaned Bill. "A little castor oil never hurt anyone," Dr. Burton agreed. "Do you hear that, Tom?" Bill said, grasping at straws. "Dr. Burton says a little." "That's right," the doctor cautioned. "Not too much." He turned to Tom. "I suppose you've had chicken pox?" "No, sir," said Tom. "When I was a kid I had something that looked just like it. Some people even said it was chicken pox. But it turned out to be pleurisy," Dr. Burton nodded sagely. "It's the only disease that ever gave me any trouble." The next day, when it became apparent that all of us had chicken pox, Anne had Tom move all the boys' beds into Frank and Bill's room and all the girls' beds into Mother's and Dad's room. The rooms were adjacent, and by leaving the door open, Anne could supervise both wards from her bed. Anne had no intention of letting any mass epidemic interfere with the family routine. She had each of us get up long enough to wash, remake our beds, weigh ourselves, and make the notations on the process charts. We got the phonograph from the boys' bathroom. We usually listened to the language records while we were taking baths or otherwise occupied in what Dad called periods of unavoidable delay. And we set it up in the doorway between the two wards. We played French and German records for 15 minutes. Then Anne got up and looked at the charts to make sure everyone had done what they were supposed to. That's fine, she sighed as she crawled back into bed. Now we can enjoy poor health. And a pox on the first person who gets me up again. None of us felt very sick. We sang for a while with the boys' ward carrying the melody and the girls' ward in alto. Sometimes, to get the song just right, the boys would sing their parts alone, and the girls would sing theirs alone, and then we'd try them together. We sang Yes We Have No Bananas, and Oh Gee, Oh Gosh, Oh Golly, I'm in Love. Last night on the back porch, You've got to see Mama every night or you can't see Mama at all. Then we played some of the new dance records and sang along with them. What'll I Do? And All Alone by the Telephone. Charlie, My Boy, Limehouse Blues, and The Prisoner's Song. We didn't mind being sick, and we hoped Mother wouldn't find out and worry about us. After a while, we could hear the sound of a spoon clanking against the glass down in the kitchen, and we knew Tom was mixing castor oil with orange juice and sugar. All of the boys, from Frank on down the line, immediately feigned deep sleep. Tom brought the castor oil upstairs, one glass at a time. The stirring grew progressively louder as he mounted the back stairs and walked through the upstairs hall to the wards. When he arrived for the first dose, the boys were snoring. You don't fool me none, he told them. I can see them eyes winking. I'll be up with your medicine in a few minutes. He knocked noisily on the open door of the girls' ward with his head modestly averted. Tom always made an elaborate ceremony of knocking before entering one of the girls' rooms. He thought that the knocking was a waste of time, and alleged that he had, at one time or another, changed all of their diapers. But Dad and Mother insisted on it. When Tom did, by mistake, happen in on one of the girls who was not fully dressed, he never could understand, or make believe he could understand, the ensuing commotion. It's all right, he'd say while the girls dived shrieking into a closet. It don't embarrass me none. I don't mind at all. Now, after knocking, he asked, All right if I come in, Anne? He stirred the castor oil harder and louder than ever. I guess so, Anne conceded. Ain't nobody here, said Ernestine, but us chicken poxers. Tom entered and bowed low to Ernestine, the princess. Here you are, your highness, he said. I have brung you a present from the Grand Duchess. He held out the glass. Anne first, Ernestine protested. She's the oldest. Besides, you've probably spiked my drink. Where'd you learn talk like that? Said Tom, genuinely shocked. I'm going to tell your mother when she gets home. Here, hand me the glass, and for goodness sake be quiet, both of you, said Anne. Oh, what's the use? Ernestine wailed. All right, give it to me. Having reached the decision, she grabbed the glass before her willpower deserted her and drained it. Good girl, Ernie, Tom beamed. You're in the club. How was it? Remembering she was supposed to set a good example, she smiled bravely. Delicious, she gulped. Positively delicious. See what I told you, Tom said. The orange juice cuts the taste. That's right, Ernestine lied. Positively delicious. See what I told you. Do you want some more? Tom asked hopefully. I wouldn't mind fixing you another glass. No, Ernestine shouted. No thank you. It was mighty good, but that was plenty. Tomorrow then, said Tom as he departed for the kitchen to mix Anne's dose. I've never had so much castor oil in my life, Ernestine whispered to Anne. The old idiot must think I'm as irregular as a French verb. If you don't mind, Anne pleaded, please keep quiet until I've had mine. My heart bleeds for you, but please hold your oily tongue. Anne, Martha, and finally Frank all faced up to their responsibilities by taking their medicine and managing to smack their lips and say it was good. But when Tom came to Bill, the era of cooperation ended. In the first place, Bill wouldn't wake up, and the more Tom shook him, the louder he snored. I've never seen such a sound sleeper, said Tom, deciding it was time for psychology. Well, if I can't wake him for his castor oil, I know the next best thing. Bill's snores shook the bedroom. Does anyone know where the hot water bottle is? Said Tom. Bill thought he knew what that meant. He rolled over and opened an eye. Where am I? He asked sleepily. What time is it? It's time, said Tom, shoving a glass in Bill's face. To drink this. What is it? Bill asked, stalling as long as possible. You know what it is, hollered Tom, whose patience was becoming exhausted. Now swaller it. I don't like it. How do you know you don't like it when you ain't tasted it? I've tasted it before. It tastes nasty. Look, said Tom deliberately. Ask Anne. Ask Ernestine. Ask Martha. Ask Frank. It's good. It's delicious. I know them. They're just setting good examples. Tom now played his whole card. Look, he purred. I've got another glass just like this one out in the hall. But if you be a good boy and drink this, I'll drink that one just to show you how good it is. By now, all of the younger boys were frankly awake and watching Bill. He considered the offer carefully. How do I know, he asked suspiciously, that there is castor oil in the other glass? You can take my word for it, can't you? Tom was shouting again. I don't think so. Call me a liar then, said Tom. Call me a liar. He went to the hall and came back holding a glass in each hand. Take your choice. If that ain't fair, I don't know what is. When I take mine, will you take a glass with me? Fred asked. Sure, said Tom. It's delicious. Ask Anne. How about me? Dan wanted to know. Certainly. And me, said Jack. Me too, Lillian shouted from the girls' ward. Everybody, Tom agreed. All hands on the cook. Bill examined the glasses closely, and the girls came in to watch him make his choice. The glasses contained the same amount of orange juice, but there was one very obvious difference. On the surface of the juice in one glass was only a few bubbles of oil. On the surface of the other floated almost a half an inch of solid oil. I'll take this one, said Bill, pointing to the glass with a few bubbles. Are you sure you want that one? Tom asked innocently. I don't see any difference. Don't try to wiggle out of it, said Bill. That's the one I want. He was just about to take the glass when he looked up and saw Ernestine barely shake her head. Sure you don't want to change your mind, said Tom, obviously pleased with the way things were going. Okay, said Bill, you talked me into it. I'll change my mind. He grabbed the glass with all the oil on top. Hey, wait a minute, Tom protested, and there was a genuine terror in his voice. You don't want that one. If you look close, you can see it's loaded with oil. This is the one you want. But it was too late. Bill drank the orange juice and the salad oil. Delicious, he grinned. Positively delicious. Tom looked with distaste at the glass he was holding. He managed a smile, but it was a weak one. Good boy, Bill, he muttered finally. Am I the one in the club for drinking my medicine, Tom? I guess so. For 1,000 years and 4 days? Tom nodded gloomily. Are you going to drink yours now, Tom? He nodded again. Are you going to drink a glass with Lillian, Fred, Dan, Jack, Bob, Jane, like you promised? Tom looked around him. The girls were biting their lips to keep from laughing. Frank had buried his head in his pillow. Drink it, said Bill. It's delicious, said Ernestine. Ask Anne. If looks could have killed, the princess's body would have been in an advanced stage of rigor mortis. Ask Ernestine, said Martha. Ask Martha, said Frank. Ask Frank, said Bill. I don't know why I work here. Tom shook his head dully. 17 years with the family, and when I start to get a little old, they try to poison me. 120 million people in the country, and I gotta be the one who works here. No, said Anne. Don't drink it, Tom. It was only a joke, and not a very good one, I guess. We're sorry, Tom. Tom stepped back with a dignity, favored us with a withering glance, and drained his glass. Then he stalked out of the room, descended to the kitchen, and returned with a bottle of castor oil and a spoon. He handed them to Ernestine, and he didn't forget to bow. Here, Duchess, he said. I know who put them up to it. I saw that guilty look. I ain't deaf, you know, and I ain't blind. Now you get the rest of them to take their medicine, like the doctor said. He left the room again, only this time he backed out, bowing, curtsying, and grasping his forelock. Ernestine tried to hand the bottle to Anne, but Anne wouldn't take it. It's your responsibility, Ernestine said. You are the oldest. Tom's right, Anne said. I seen that guilty look too, Duchess, so it's up to you. I delegate the responsibility.